KJA Global Channel. The Political System and Me. Series 4. The Political System Across Every Sector of Society. Episode 36. Public Finance Sector. Budget, Procurement, Audits, and Citizen Oversight. Money is the quiet language of power. A government can promise almost anything with words. It can announce grand visions, launch beautiful slogans, celebrate national plans as though they were already reality. But the truth of governance is not found first in speeches. It is found in budgets. A budget is a confession. It reveals what a state truly values, what it protects, what it fears, and who it serves. Public finance is the bloodstream of the political system. It moves resources from the common pool into roads, schools, hospitals, salaries, security, infrastructure, and public services. That is why public finance is one of the most contested arenas of politics. This is where our question begins. Can citizens follow public money from collection to budget, from budget to contract, from contract to service, and from service to correction? Democracy cannot survive on elections alone. Democracy survives on transparent money flows. If citizens cannot track public money can be used to track citizens through dependence, favor, fear, and corruption. A budget is not only a plan. It is a moral map. Public money belongs to the people. Government does not own it. Government holds it temporarily as a trustee. Corruption is therefore not a minor administrative offense. It is theft from the collective life. When an official steals public money, the loss is not abstract. It may be medicine that never arrives, a road that collapses, a teacher who is never hired, or a family that remains without clean water. The system reveal is budget, procurement, and audit integrity. Public money is the people's property, not the government's privilege. In plain language, the hidden mechanism is budget, procurement, and audit integrity. Procurement is where corruption often hides. Audit is the discipline that makes trust possible. Citizen oversight is the final layer of accountability. If you want to see the real constitution of a country, do not read only the legal constitution. Read the financial constitution. Read where money goes, who receives contracts, who wins procurement, who is audited, and who is never audited. Public finance begins with revenue. Taxes, fees, natural resource income, public enterprises, grants, borrowing, and other sources fill the common pool. Revenue policy asks who contributes, how much, under what law, and with what burden. A tax system can be fair and predictable, or it can protect the powerful while collecting from those least able to resist. Borrowing also creates public obligations. Debt can finance development, emergencies, and long-term investment. But hidden debt, reckless guarantees, and politically convenient borrowing can transfer today's decisions onto tomorrow's citizens. The budget converts revenue into priorities. It decides which institutions receive money, what programs continue, what regions are served, and which promises remain unfunded. A democratic budget requires more than publication. It requires understandable information, realistic assumptions, legislative debate, public participation, and records that allow comparison between plans and results. A budget may look balanced while hiding obligations outside the main accounts. Special funds, public enterprises, military spending, guarantees, emergency accounts, or off-budget arrangements can conceal risk. Transparency must therefore cover the whole public finance system, not only the most visible document. If a budget is the plan, procurement is where the plan becomes real. Government buys medicines, roads, school materials, vehicles, construction, food, technology, consulting, communications, and countless other goods and services. Procurement transparency is not bureaucracy. It is anti-theft engineering. An open process asks what is needed, who may compete, how bids are evaluated, who owns the bidding companies, what price is agreed, what quality is required, and whether delivery is verified. Corruption can enter at every stage. Specifications may be written for one favored supplier. Competitors may be excluded. Prices may be inflated. Contracts may be divided to avoid review. Delivery records may be falsified. And officials may hide their private interests behind anonymous companies. Beneficial ownership means identifying the real human beings who ultimately own or control a company. Without that information, an official can award a contract to a company secretly connected to family, business partners, or political allies. Conflict of interest rules therefore protect both public money and public confidence. Officials should disclose relevant interests, recuse themselves where necessary, and face independent review when private benefit may influence public duty. Emergency procurement may be necessary during war, disaster, epidemic, or sudden crisis. But urgency must not become a permanent excuse to bypass competition, records, price checks, and later audit. Emergency rules should define the reason, duration, authority, reporting duty, review process, and return to ordinary procedures. Contract management is as important as contract award. A competitive tender means little if nobody checks whether the road, medicine, school, or information system was delivered as promised. Every major contract should produce records of milestones, payments, changes, inspections, delays, penalties, and final performance. Audits are the immune system of public finance. They ask whether money was spent as intended, whether rules were followed, whether value was received, whether risks were managed, and whether conflicts were disclosed. Financial audit tests whether accounts are accurate. Compliance audit tests whether law and procedure were followed. Performance audit tests whether spending achieved results efficiently and effectively. Audits are not punishments. They are instruments of learning, prevention, correction, and lawful accountability. But a fake audit system produces reports without enforcement. Findings are published, recommendations are ignored, and corruption survives beneath paperwork. Independent audit requires access to records, professional competence, secure tenure, adequate funding, publication authority, and protection from retaliation. Legislative oversight must then examine the findings. Committees should question officials, require action plans, track implementation, and refer serious evidence for investigation where lawful. Citizen oversight adds another layer. Citizens, journalists, researchers, professional bodies, community organizations, and affected residents can compare budgets, contracts, deliveries, and outcomes. Citizen oversight does not mean accusation without evidence. It means asking disciplined questions, preserving records, distinguishing error from misconduct, and using lawful routes for correction. To understand the public finance sector, follow the public money chain. Revenue, budget, procurement, contract, service or outcome, audit, public report, and correction. Revenue asks where money came from, who paid, and whether collection was lawful and fair. Budget asks who set priorities, what was authorized, and what remained unfunded. Procurement asks how suppliers were chosen and whether competition was genuine. Contract asks who received money, on what terms, and with what conflicts disclosed. Service or outcome asks what was actually delivered and who benefited. Audit asks who tested the records, compliance, value, and performance. Public report and correction ask what citizens learned and what changed after failure. A broken outcome may begin far upstream. The visible harm may be a failed bridge, missing medicine, an unfinished school, an overpriced system, or a service that never reaches the public. But the deeper failure may be unfair revenue, a hidden budget, restricted competition, a secret owner, false invoices, weak inspection, captured audit, or a remedy that exists only on paper. The chain prevents us from reducing failure to one official or one contractor. It identifies where law, finance, competition, records, capacity, oversight, correction, or enforcement stopped working. When citizens and professionals locate that break, criticism becomes more accurate and reform becomes more practical. For this episode, the principal mechanism is budget, procurement, and audit integrity. The production graphic must make every link readable on a phone screen and label country-specific or proposed arrangements honestly. Under dictatorship, public finance is shaped primarily by concentrated command. Information is restricted, institutions answer upward, budgets serve control, procurement rewards loyalty, and challenge may carry personal risk. Audits may be used selectively against opponents while protected networks remain untouched. In a fragile democracy, formal rules may exist while patronage, unequal capacity, corruption, politicized contracts, weak records, or poor enforcement makes integrity inconsistent. Budgets may be published, but difficult to understand. Tenders may be open, but competition manipulated. Audits may identify failure, but lack follow-through. In a functioning federal democracy, authority is constitutionally distributed, common rights remain enforceable, and legislatures, audit institutions, courts, procurement bodies, local governments, media, civil society, and citizens can test public finance. But the label alone proves nothing. The viewer should compare who decides, how authority was obtained, whether records are public, whether affected people participate, and whether reporting, investigation, and lawful sanction exist in practice. A democratic public finance system must be designed, funded, staffed, reviewed, and corrected. The minimum guardrails are 1. Published budgets and understandable accounts. Revenue, spending, debt, transfers, special funds, performance, and major risks should be disclosed in forms ordinary citizens can use. 2. Open and competitive procurement. Tender notices, specifications, evaluation criteria, bids, awards, contracts, changes, delivery records, and exceptions should be documented and reviewable. 3. Conflict of interest and beneficial ownership controls. Officials and bidders should disclose relevant interests, hidden ownership, family connections, gifts, and relationships that may distort public decisions. 4. Independent audit and legislative oversight. Auditors need access, competence, security, publication authority, and follow-up through open and evidence-based legislative review. 5. Public reporting, investigation, and lawful sanction. Citizens need accessible reports, protected complaint routes, credible investigation, recovery of losses, corrective action, and proportionate penalties where wrongdoing is proved. These safeguards work as a system. Budgets without understandable accounts can hide priorities. Procurement without ownership disclosure can hide insiders. Audits without follow-up become theater. Participation without safety can expose people. And sanction without due process can become political revenge. Global relevance. Across political labels, ask who controls public money, who receives contracts, what records exist, who audits, who can investigate, and whether correction is real. Myanmar relevance. Use ordinary lived experience only where it clarifies the mechanism. Do not treat one authority, budget system, organization, company, community, or proposed arrangement as the whole country. Separate existing institutions from interim systems, local practices, political commitments, humanitarian arrangements, and aspirational federal designs. Here is the civic practice for this episode. See and ask. Find one non-sensitive public contract or tender and ask whether the process was open, competitive, and properly recorded. Verify. Examine budget documents, procurement law, tender notice, ownership information, contract terms, delivery records, audit findings, and public reports. Distinguish an allegation from a conclusion supported by records. ACT. Build a one-page public money chain for one budget or procurement item. Record the revenue source, budget authority, procurement route, contractor, expected result, audit status, public report, and correction mechanism. Flag missing records without converting the exercise into a public accusation. Review. Record whether you can name the responsible institution, the evidence, the safeguard or remedy, and one safe next step. Where public action is unsafe, complete the exercise privately and preserve no identifying information that could expose another person. The measure of success is not visibility. It is whether you can identify responsibility, evidence, a credible safeguard, and the safest practical action. When citizens understand public funds as the people's trust, they can demand accountability with moral confidence. The purpose of public finance is not to circulate money inside elite networks. It is to improve public life. Did the spending improve life? If not, the result may be failure, waste, or theft. Public finance is the social contract made measurable. If procurement is captured, development becomes a lie. Public finance reform is not merely technical improvement. It is democratic survival. Freedom is not only the right to speak. It is also the right to know where public money went. The principle to carry forward is this: public money is the people's property, not the government's privilege. Ask yourself, what part of public finance integrity have I treated as normal even though it should be visible, answerable, and correctable? Public money is public trust. In the next episode, we continue with justice sector. Courts, lawyers, evidence, and legal aid. Continue the playlist, use the worksheet, and keep the practice safe, truthful, and disciplined. The system shapes our lives. Our participation shapes the system. Subscribe, learn, participate, shape the future. KJA, knowledge justifies authority.